Welcome to the American Family Senior Benefits Family Hour, alongside with Todd Riley. I am Jay Stoll. Harrison is behind the scenes to make sure everything goes smooth, and we are joined by a special guest, Scott Ballinger. Guys, just getting into it to begin with, we like to talk sports. We like to talk Medicare. We like to talk insurance. We're going to go a little bit of a different route today. So we're going to hit quickly on sports. Texas A&M loses. Jimbo Fisher might be out. It's a $90 million buyout. I think $75 million to be exact. And money grows on trees down in Texas, so we know that. Adrian Martinez went out with an injury. Did anybody hear what happened at all? No, he just kind of pulled himself right out of the game, and that was that. And then Iowa football, for those folks that are Iowa fans here, their defense now has scored more than their offense.
Their quarterback this game had 49 yards with one interception.
And what was his name?
Next.
It was. it wasn't the mustache, was it?
Next man up, please.
And that's where family values comes in, and it's not always the best to hire family to help run an important aspect of a football team, such as offensive coordinator. But, Kurt Ferentz obviously knows what he's doing. Wisconsin wins over Purdue. Again, the Nebraska curse. When you play Nebraska, you win. Congratulations. But the rest of the season, you are screwed. So we did Purdue win pretty well as well.
Well, I tell you what, Purdue came from behind. When I first turned that on, it wasn't even a game. And then I was doing something else and came back. I'm like, holy smokes, Purdue actually put up a reasonable response there for a while, but too little, too late.
And then the people clamoring for Lance Leipold, the people clamoring for Lane Kiffin. Lance goes down to Baylor, and another coach that's on the radar for Nebraska, Dave Aranda, hands it to Kansas Jayhawks pretty good. So Kansas now 0-2 the last two games. Is the bubble popped, or is everybody just catching on, or is it the fact Kansas has a backup quarterback?
Well, speaking when Kansas was like 5-0, you're like, are we talking about the basketball team? That's the first time Kansas has had any glory. So they're going to be thrilled. I remember at Iowa State, being so bad for years, got a coach, went to the first bowl game. Excuse me. Doesn't matter what that bowl game is. They're going to be thrilled to death down there. So I think it's some of all. I mean, you get a new system in, people do watch tape, watch film, they figure it out. But, hats off to those guys down there. That's kind of cool to see somebody else come up that has been so bad for so long. It's fun to see them get a little moment in the sun too.
Absolutely it is. And then down in Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, they have a big lead, and then LSU comes back and puts 45-3 on them in the second half and blows them out of the water.
It's stunning, isn't it? What can happen? But LSU is always a team to not go to sleep on, and unfortunately, that must have been what happened. I don't know I would like to have heard the halftime talk, but like I said, LSU got to count them in every year, regardless of what their score says.
Yeah, and I found Adrian's injury. They didn't really go into details, but he re-aggravated a leg injury, so it could be his ankle or his knee. And then he sat out the entire second half. Obviously, backup comes in, throws a pick, first play, pretty much frogs all the way second half, and they come back in that game. But if Adrian was healthy, Kansas State, they'd probably have another win under the belt against a ranked team.
I don't know if I agree with you on that there, just for this reason. The backup comes in, and K-State goes up 28-10. The backup looked good, and then the adjustments happened. The biggest difference was the backup was pushing the ball heavily down the field, where we know Adrian to kind of hold up in the pocket a little bit, maybe hit a check down if there's a crosser available. But this guy was just winging it down the field. Yeah. So it was fun to watch. It was interesting.
I kind of like that Adrian offense, though, more against a team like TCU. When you have a quarterback that can kind of salt the wound and take, 12, 10-minute drives almost just by his ability to get quick first downs, when you're playing a team like against TCU, I don't know if you necessarily want those deep bombs all the time. You're giving them the ball back a lot. That's an explosive offense. And that's what we saw. They were down 18 and came roaring back. So, that's obviously a lot to project, but it was a good game nonetheless. Probably one of the best games of the night.
Absolutely. And there was a quarterback that lives real close to us that went down to TCU because we didn't want to give Max Duggan a look at all. We don't need that. We're good. Baseball looks like it's going to be the Astros and Phillies. Scott?
I believe so. Who knows though? I definitely think Phil's are on a hot streak. I think there's a lot to, the major league went to a new playoff system to where, teams had to play in, and unfortunately, my New York Mets were one of those teams that was in a 3-game set and ran across the team that got hot at the end of the season. Those teams that have to continue to fight to get into the playoffs, I think create some momentum for themselves, and especially on the National League side between the Padres, Phils. Who knows? I think that could go either way, but the fact that the Yankees are down 3-0. What is it? There's only one team in Major League history that's ever done it. It was like the 04 Red Sox, and so they've got a big hurdle. But I think it'll be the Stros, Phils, and who knows from there. World Series.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That'd be a good series. Batting Phils, they put up runs, and Astros got great pitching. See if Verlander can find the fountain of youth. Now with that, the really nice thing is with Scott here is Scott Ballinger used to be a Nebraska Wesleyan baseball coach. He's very revered around the community as a youth baseball coach. And so this topic was brought up last week, and it really piqued my interest because I have been guilty of it. And that is parent responsibility, coach's responsibility of youth sports, and especially when you're paying a lot of money for your kid to play youth sports. I see way too many times that parents want return of investment, or parents feel because they're paying so much money that they can have a say. On vice versa side, I see coaches that want to kind of put the parents at bay, or put them on their side of the fence, as you will. So with Scott here, he, like I said, he's a very revered baseball coach here in the community. I am a parent of a child that plays youth sports, and Todd has as well. Scott, let's just get into it. What are the do's and the don'ts? So we're talking to parents now. We're not going to be talking to grandparents. We're talking to parents that have kids that are playing youth sports. How important is it to have communication between the coaches and the parents?
Yeah. Well, first off, I finished up at Wesleyan in 2019. But prior to that, when we came into town, my wife and I, back in 2000, I started with Babe Ruth baseball. And so I got the youth aspect of it. And so when we talk about parents, me as a coach, I always had a parent meeting, and I established the credibility, the trust. Those parents had to know that I had their son's best interest in mind. And we also, came up with a procedure that if they were dissatisfied with anything that I had done, or specifically if they were dissatisfied with their son's playing time, I was going to have a direct conversation with them. That conversation was going to be started with the young man that was on my team. And then if there was no resolve, then a parent can be involved. But, the fact that I think all too often coaches will just, take the team and get them going and never have any kind of conversation with parents, creates that tension down the road.
Now, there is a division between parents, because you have some parents that say, you know what, I just want my kids to be on a team. I want them to develop and have fun. Then you have the other parents that says, I have my kids on a team. I pay this money. I want to win. How do you decipher which route to go? I mean, what is your philosophy? Because like I said, you're very revered. You're very well liked here in the community. A lot of parents want their kids to play baseball for you because you show development, but also you show victory side. How do you separate those two from fun to winning and make it as one?
Interesting you bring that up. It was when I was at Wesleyan, the D3 model. I played JUCO ball. I played Division II baseball. The D3 model is positive playing experience, which is a very subjective statement. And so positive for me is playing at the highest level, highest competition, competing for championships, while others, but with that comes sacrifice and a lot of work. And a lot of folks do not want to put in that time and that dedication. While then on the flip side of it, positive playing experience can be having fun, hanging out with your buddies. My preference is, I think you can have both, have high expectations, compete for championships, and along the way you're galvanizing great relationships with everybody on your team.
Now, you're a professional, but how do you block out the noise? Because when I'm sitting with the parents, and I've been guilty of this as well. Obviously, I know more than coaches. The coaches have no idea what they're doing. And if I was calling, the steal sign or the play on the football field or the basketball court, it would be successful. The coaches have no idea. How do you block out that noise? How do you block out the background noise? Because I know you have to hear it.
I don't. I literally I don't hear it, because when we're coaching, we're teaching young people to control the things they can control, their effort, their attitude, what the other team brings. They can't really control. Me as a coach, I can only control my team. Anything outside of that is outside of my realm, and it's just wasted energy. And it's probably arrogance on my part, but I know I know the game. Probably any better than any parent that would be on that team, and I established that, and so yeah.
So on your teams, and I want to get into more youth now. Because, like I said, parents, they want their kids to play. And if they don't play, they get justifiably upset. And I understand that. I've been on that side of the fence. What determines playing time in youth sports?
Well, that is a head scratcher. I think that's on an individual basis. Each coach is going to have their own determining factors of who's going to play, who's not going to play. Um, yeah, it is a tough one. I would suggest this to parents. I felt this personally. Our oldest going to be a senior. He played youth sport, and he was one of those guys that was number 14 or 15 on the team. Wasn't exceptional, but we always told him to go out and try to get better, and along the way be a good teammate. And the interesting thing is, as kids get older, they get into high school, that funnel gets tighter and they go into different areas and sports that they wish to pursue and have passion in. And fortunately, our oldest, Jarrett, he's still pursuing baseball and looking for college right now. But I think I don't think we had any control. I think it was him making some decisions as far as commitment to the weight room, commitment to getting better as a baseball player. I wish there was some type of suggestion of what kids possess that trait to do something about, not playing.
Now, what can we as parents help out with? Do you want us to get individual lessons? Do you want us to do youth agility? Do you want us to do take the video games away and get off the couch? What
Do you want us to stay out of the way?
do you want us to stay out of the way?
Well, I high functioning teams, it is cooperation on all levels, cooperation with the coaches, cooperation with the players, and especially parents. Parents have a tremendous influence on kids' development. The parents that have the tendency or the opportunity to spend more time with their kids in the backyard playing catch, take them to the batting cage. I would ask those parents to have a very specific conversation with the coach of what skill needs to be taught. So then it's reinforced because, I've seen sometimes parents, they'll put in the time, but they may not know what they're doing, and then they're reinforcing the negative, and so then it's a lot of retraining. But in the game of baseball, you're talking. I think parents and teams they want to have wins and a bunch of games, and I would argue that there's just way too many games.
Yeah.
I'm going to have an opportunity to come back and coach our 10 and 11-year-olds this year, and I would already talk to the coach about backing off games.
So you don't want 50 or 60 games a season?
Absolutely not. I would rather have 2 to 3 practices a week. And then as the season progresses, you could up the games, just so we're getting that development.
Now, Todd, you and I, we sit on the other side of the fence. And so you are a father, you're a grandfather. How does it affect you when you're watching your kid play sports?
I tell you what, Scott, that was something that you'd mentioned. You have a parent meeting with the kids. In all the years my two sons were playing, sorry, we had never ever had a parent meeting. That's really good. And I also like the idea of talking to the coach. Where can my child improve? I don't know if I ever did that. Now that I'm thinking back, maybe once. So both really good ideas. But yeah, and a good friend of mine up in Fremont has coached for years, literally decades now, and he just retired from it this year, and it was the parents, not the kids, that got him out of it. And I've heard you say that too, Scott, that if it was just the kids, you'd do it forever. It is hard, like Jay had said a second ago, to just sit on your hands sometimes, or to to keep your mouth shut. But we're not out there. We're not on the field. We don't know we haven't seen every second of practice. We haven't seen every locker room situation. So we don't know what we don't know, and probably silence is the best option.
Now, I hope you would never ever come up to me or anybody else and say how they should parent. If a parent wants to come up to a coach, though, right, and ask questions, what is acceptable to talk about and what is not acceptable to talk about?
Yeah, it would be a situation to where I'm not going to get involved in that conversation at the ballpark. We would establish a mutual time to sit, because normally after a baseball game or any kind of sporting event, there's going to be emotions attached to that, and it's very likely that I'm going to have a quick trigger too and get frustrated. So I don't think that would set up a good situation at all. I was going to mention something you'd said earlier, what parents can do. This is a situation where when I talk to parents, it should not be about the wins and the losses, but more importantly, it's about the individual accomplishments of a young person. And so we always encourage parents to talk about, like a pivotal at bat or a pitch or a defensive play. And I want parents to talk to that child and ask them, like, what was going on in the moment, like prior to that pitch or that at bat, like what was going on in their head. And we're hoping that it's a sense of calm and this focus. And it's like, boy, if parents can hone in on that, and then the young person sees success, then what they can do is, it's like you can build on that. It can be reinforced, and then collectively as a team, if everybody is doing that, it is a recipe for success. And then the other thing is, you also got to talk about, the errors, right? Or baseball is a game of failure, and not that we're going to capitalize or put somebody down for an error, but I'd want to know if a person didn't make a play, what was going on in their head. What were they in the moment? Were they, crisp, focus, knowing what they were going to do when the ball was put in play, or was it sheer panic? Now, if it's sheer panic, that's a whole different situation and conversation we're going to have. But if it's a calm, collect, it's like errors happen, right? So But I think that's where, sometimes us as coaches, we don't convey that message to our parents of, when you have a conversation with your kid, here's some suggestions.
So after the game, don't get on your kid. Don't get down on your kid.
Yeah.
Why did you do this? This is you're making these mistakes because you're in your room all the time, or you're outside riding your bike instead of hitting the cage. Or so yeah. So kids are very delicate. You're saying after the game. I mean, they realize they made the mistake. They don't need someone tell them again. You did this.
I'm not too worried about what they did. I'm gonna be inquiring about the 5 to 10 seconds prior to that moment. Where was their head?
Yep.
Were they in the game somewhere else chasing butterflies, right? Like
Playing in the dirt. I remember that with one of my kids. If you got a question, you got a comment, Honda Lincoln Hotline, 402-464-5685. Sartor Haveman text line again, 402-464-5685. For those of you out there, Scott is one of our managers and trainers at our Lincoln office. And as you can tell, with that kind of thought process, with that sort of caring, he does a fantastic job for us. We talk about working, the beauty of fun of working at American Senior Benefits. That's something of interest. Give Joyce Ann a call, 402-413-9846. Scott, Jay had brought up a good question as we were walking in this morning. When I was playing, it was free little league, it was free junior high, free high school sports. Now people are paying $10, $14, $15, $20,000 a year to have their kids in a sport. Does that give them any more right to talk to the coach, or does it do the same rules apply?
Yeah.
Now it turns into a business discussion.
Yeah, that is tough. I will say, if I'm a parent, I'm going to be spending that much money, I want to make sure that it is a non-parent coaching. I think that the biggest issues that I see in the youth sport world, specifically baseball, is dads being coaches. Little Johnny didn't get much playing time, so dad's going to start up another team and solve that problem. But the problem is just it's nice when you have somebody unbiased coaching that team.